Good evening, my dear viewers, and welcome to another Alliteration gaming video. My name's Levi, and tonight we're doing another Star Wars Unlimited deck profile on none other than my all-time favorite deck in this card game, ECL Bossk. Specifically, the ECL Bossk list that I took to the Denver Sector Qualifier and snuck my way into top 64 with. Finished 6-3 day one, not quite enough to make it to day two, but enough to get into the top 64 at 49th place and score me this super duper sweet Bossk showcase. So I freaking love this deck. This deck is super awesome. It's also very different than a lot of the Bossk lists that you're probably used to seeing. Obviously, Blue Hard Control Bossk is kind of the big one for quite some time now, really, ever since it took down that big EU tournament. However, Green Bossk is not an unknown quantity, although most of the time when you see it, it's a big ramp into big guys 30 HP base Bossk. This is a very different list, and honestly, this is not going to be as much of a deep dive into this deck as it's going to be more of a bit of an update, because the last time that I deck profiled this video on the channel was back in set 2, and honestly the deck has not changed very much at all. So if you want like the core guide to this deck, I implore you to still go back and watch that previous deck profile, because again, the deck's just not that different, and a lot of that like strategy breakdown is still the same. But, you know, given the performance this past weekend, I figured it would be cool to do a little bit of an update on this deck, especially because with the most recent bans in place, it's probably going to change a lot. So with that being said, we're going to kind of blitz through this as a bit more of like an update, sort of like a sequel to the previous profile. And if you really want to get like the full core, like how the heck do you play this super duper aggro combo focused version of the deck, go watch the previous deck profile. I'm going to have it linked down below. But to actually get into the deck itself here, we're playing Bossk, we're playing ECL. This is basically to set up all of our combos. We have a lot of really great ECL targets. It helps us ramp, it helps us capture our bounties on our flip turn. It lets us go very fast. And then Bossk is just awesome. He gets to ping damage on bountied units, whittles them down quite quickly, especially if you get an early bounty on. Flipping on 5 is a 4/6. He's super duper aggressively statted. And if you get that double collect bounty again, that's kind of where like the main advantage of this deck comes from. We want to ramp to that flip turn. We want to get a sweet double collect. We want to push a lot of damage on that turn, gain a lot of tempo, and then just kind of squeeze out the game from there with like our very minor top end that we have. So let's move these guys aside and then actually get to the deck itself. So we're going to go ground units to space units, and so our first one here is going to be 3 copies of the 1st Legion Snowtrooper. This guy is really awesome in this deck. He's a 2/3, but when he attacks a damaged unit, he attacks for 4 power and gets Overwhelm. Obviously, damaged units are a dime a dozen because of the Bossk ping, so this guy is really good. He's just a really great thing to open with. If they open with a guy on the ground and you draw a bounty in the next couple turns, you're going to effortlessly kill it, probably deal some Overwhelm damage with the ping. He's also a really good ECL target in a pinch if you just need to hit something for 4, 5 with the Bossk ping. That's really nice. It lets you kill techs and DJs, basically anything that's hanging out for 5 on the ground. It's really good. Our next ground unit, that's actually our only ground 2-drop. We're gonna get into that later, but it's kind of one of the more experimental things I did over this weekend with this deck. But next up is 3 Super Laser Technician. When this guy dies, he becomes a resource. This is just our little ramp fella. Obviously, we're playing ECL, so being able to ambush this guy is just even better. Being able to like bounty turn 1, ECL this guy in turn 2, collect your bounty, do a little ramping action. It's just really good. It's really good. We want to ramp with this guy every time. A ramp that gets to also act aggressively is just sick. Next up is 3 copies of the Phase 3 Dark Trooper. This guy has gotten a little bit worse as a ground sentinel, but there's still a very non-zero amount of ground guys running around. Obviously, with Jango getting, just his absolute head cut off, we're not going to have to worry about like, the best deck in the game being like full-time space aggro, so this guy might find a little bit more value. And honestly, one of the reasons why he's still just kind of in here is he's a great 3-drop to find off of the Bounty Hunter's Quarry, and we really don't have that much else better to play. One of the big reasons why this deck hasn't changed that much in the last few sets is because the red-green villainy card quality just hasn't been astounding, and of course, at least when it comes to our deck's niche, there hasn't been new bounty support since set 2, but this deck still cuts it. It's freaking sweet. Next up, our ground unit here is Jango Fett in the 4-drop slot. This guy is amazing. So 4 cost 3/6, but he attacks for 6 and gets Overwhelmed when he's hitting something with a bounty, and just whenever he kills something, he gets to draw a card. This guy is awesome. What you really want to do on like the 5 resource turn almost every time is play the 1 cost Bounty Hunter's Quarry and then ECL this guy in, Overwhelm, ready your punishing one, draw a card, double collect, blast a bunch of damage. It's just really good. Same thing as like the Snow Trooper. You can really whittle down the health of the bountied up units, and so Jango just comes in, can do a lot of overwhelm damage. There's a lot of really good breakpoints. Obviously, he swings for 6. 6 health is very important, but what's harder to hit than 6 health? 7 health. That's like the magic one in this game. A Bossk ping, and then this guy hitting for 6. That's 7 right there. So you can kill anything on the 5 resource flip turn. It's just super duper good. Speaking of killing things in the 5 resource flip turn, especially their leaders, we're still just playing 3 steadfast battalions in this deck because we don't got anything better to ECL in on the 5 resource turn, aside from Jango, of course. But this guy, I mean, he's just good. You know, these are really tried and true tactics. You know, turn 2 ramp, turn 3 flip your 5 cost leader, sit there and stare at them with the ECL steadfast. Again, also has overwhelm. You're gonna notice there's a lot of overwhelm in this deck. Something that villain aggro has always struggled with, as opposed to heroism aggro, especially early on in set 1, is, you know, heroism aggro like Sabine and For a Cause and K2, there's so much burn damage. Villain has never had nearly as much as that, so it's really hurt their ability to be an aggro deck. But if you combine a lot of overwhelm and then, you know, some other good things that are going on in our color palette here, you can get there. You can get there. Speaking of overwhelm, boom, here's the king. We're playing 3 copies of Maul. 7/6 ambush and overwhelm, and the ability to redirect the combat damage to an underworld guy is not irrelevant. We have like Jango, our leader is an underworld unit, so that effect does happen sometimes, but really, this guy is just amazing. Again, you can whittle something down with some Bossk pings, swing stuff and get something down to like 1 health or so, chop it with Maul, overwhelm for a ton. It's just really good. You know, Jango and Steadfast with your ECL is ambush overwhelm. This guy is ambush overwhelm on the following turns too. So you're really just keeping up that train of surprise hand damage. Maul's just awesome. You know, if you're gonna ramp even 1 time against any 6 deploy leader that is not ramping against you, Maul comes out on the same turn as them and kills almost all of them on sight, aside from like a few 8 health goobers that are out there. So Maul's pretty freaking amazing. We love Maul. I don't think this deck would function without Maul. It's pretty intense. That's our ground units. To go into space now, we're playing 3 copies of Kylo's TIE Silencer. We don't have any way to activate the discard effect on this card, but it just being a 3/2 in space is really good. And you know, with all the force throws and pillages and hand hate in general running around, this guy is really, really nice protection against that. Force throw feels like a much worse card when it only deals 2 damage, and then you get to play the unit after. It's very, very sweet. It's also cool because like if this is your only 2-drop and they like turn 1 Spark of Rebellion they can't take away your play, because then you can just play it if they discard it. And of course, you know, go first against Sabine, play this. If they only have an A-Wing, they'll be really sad as you claim, kill it, and survive next turn. Next up, the absolute rock star combo king of the deck is the Punishing One. This is a 3/4 ship that when an upgraded enemy unit is defeated, you can ready this bad boy. So this card is freaking amazing. A lot of times you can do like if you do like a bounty turn 1 on their spaceship, turn 2 ECL the Punishing One into it. You kill it, you collect your bounty, you ready it up instantly, you swing with it again. Very, very strong. Or if it just kind of hangs out, a lot of times you can do stuff on the flip turn where you get to swing with this twice, push a lot of damage. You know, if this swings twice and your leader on the flip turn, that's 10 damage right there. If you're going to do some ECL overwhelm shenanigan, there's some more overwhelm damage right there. Slap the burn bounty in there for another 6, and you can easily find these like 20 damage flip turns. It can get super silly. You can also set up some really dope plays with something like Barrage, where like if you could Barrage the Punishing One, swing with it, and then kill a bounty unit and get the double swing with the buff, it's really nice. Continuing with the old school tactics, this was a new addition for this weekend. Playing 2 copies of Imperial Interceptor. This is just a 4-cost 3/2 ship, very unimpressive stats, but it blasts a space unit for 3 when it comes into play. And this is where I kind of want to talk about something really important with this deck. Is I was not going to play this deck in Denver until literally the night before, because work trips had stopped me from really playtesting set 4 at all. And so going into the Denver weekend, just kind of popping up out of nowhere, I was like, someone just hand me, I'm just going to borrow the Jango list that won, like, you know, whatever sector before, and I'm just going to rock that. And I was playtesting it the night before, and I was like, this is miserable to play. I actually just hate playing this. No way I can do this for 9 rounds. So I was like, I think I'm just going to pivot to my favorite ECL Bossk and just have a good time, even if I go X3. I'm not too worried about it. Obviously, it didn't end up too bad for me, but one of the main reasons why I was really wary about even just like jumping in with this deck regardless is all of the pilot and space aggro strategies are really scary because red-green villain as a color palette does not have ways to deal with those cards. We have no hard removal, we have no exhaust, we have all damage-based removal, which, if they just go like turn 1 spaceship, turn 2 pilot, and it's like 6 or 7 health, there's just like nothing red-green villain can really do about it. There's a world maybe we have to start exploring like playing like capture cards or maybe like bringing back Traitorous or something like that. But just kind of like, off the top of the head, those were just very scary strategies for me to think about. Obviously, I just ended up playing the deck anyway because I just like I just didn't want to play Jango, but I was trying to make some last minute additions to the deck the night before just to kind of be wary of that, like, really fast space aggro might be scary. So that's why these just kind of randomly came in, but they weren't bad. I definitely got to kill like some P38s and some silencers and stuff like that. Also, I ECL'd this into like a 6 health spaceship a couple times that had like a pilot on it to kill it, and so it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, honestly, but it did do the job that I like kind of put it in there to do. So that's why we have the random Imperial Interceptors in here. And then our last ship is, of course, 3 copies of Ruthless Raider. This is our end game right here. 4/6, when played and when defeated, 2 to the base, 2 to a unit. This is so sweet. When you get that like really, really high advantage, super duper tempo, double bounty, crazy damage flip turn, being able to then just like drop a Raider and stare at them next turn as this just kind of deals with those last like 10 health points on their base. The Raider is amazing. If really, really big ships get out of hand, you can ECL Raider in to hit for 6 into anything, or if it's going to suicide run into it, you get to hit it for 8 because you get the win played and the win defeated. So Ruthless Raider is just amazing. Even with things like no glory only results running around now, there's a bit more counters to this card than there were before, but it's still a very, very amazing piece of the process. Ruthless Raider's fantastic. We're going to go into the upgrades now because, of course, those are our bounties. We're playing 9 of them. First is 3 copies of Price on Your Head, and these green bounties are just crazy. The reason why I love green-red Bossk so much is just because like green-red gives you the nuttiest 9 bounties I've ever seen in my life. Price on Your Head is just a ramp bounty. When you kill the bounty unit, you get to top card your deck into play as a resource. So basically, if you're down to jump through the hoops, this is a 2-cost resupply. And I say jump through the hoops, you literally just put this on their turn 1 play, and then probably in about 3 turns it'll die, and then you can ramp and flip, and it's really crazy. There's even crazier plays too, of course, if you can like ECL something in turn 2, get the ramp really fast. If they play a ground unit that you get to put this on, and then turn 2 you ECL Laser Technician into it, and you double ramp, and then you flip Bossk on turn 2, it's very, very goofy. This card is just amazing. You don't really aim to like play this on the flip turn and then double it. Going from like 5 to 8 the next turn doesn't really do anything for you. We don't have 8 drops in this deck. You're kind of okay just going once. Ideally, you want to do flip turn, Raider on 6, Maul on 7 every time. That's kind of like your perfect curve. But sometimes it's not terrible. Like even if you just like double this and go to 7 the next turn and then don't resource from hand, like it's like saved you a card. So it drew you a card, kind of cool. But it's just amazing. This is, being able to play these together. We have so much ramp for this really fast aggro deck. It's great. Next up is 3 copies of Bounty Hunter Quarry. This thing says you get to grab a 3-drop or less from the top 5 cards of your deck, or the top 10 cards if you killed a unique unit. So this is super good. This is absolutely the best one in the mid-range matchups to double on your flip turn. Grabbing like 2 3-drops is amazing. Being able to grab the Punishing One and the Dark Trooper is insane. If you put this on something early game and you manage to kill it relatively quickly, and you can tutor out a Super Laser Technician, tutoring your ramp like that is actually just nuts. This card's crazy. Very, very nutty combos. And then the last bounty is 3 copies of Guild Target. This is a 0-cost bounty, which is massive for a lot of your plays. And the effect is quite good as well. You get to deal 2 direct damage to their base, or if the unit is unique, you deal 3 instead. So if you're in the aggro matchups, this is what you want to slap on the flip turn and double collect every time. Being able to go, like if you have a Punishing One out, 2 swings with the Punishing One is 6, Boss swinging is for 4, that's 10 right there. If you double this for 16, and then if you ECL'd something into it that has Overwhelm, again, that's where those 20 damage flip turns start coming in, and it's very, very, very epic. Freaking love me some Bounty Hunters Quarry, man. I mean, I love them all. The bounties are all really amazing, but guild target is sneaky good, especially if you can like put the guild target on something on the 5 resource turn, then ECL steadfast, or on the 4 resource turn, you put the guild target on something and then send Jango in, you kill anything you want, kind of get a big tempo swing out of that. Next up in the events, we're playing 3 copies of Shoot Down. This is the only set 4 card in this deck, guys. Again, put this in last minute the night before because I was just scared of space aggro. This is pretty sweet. Dealing 3 to a space unit, and if you kill it, you hit their base for 2. Probably the best thing you can do against any aggro deck is let them take the first action. They play a space unit, and then you just shoot down it. So neither of us got a unit, which is great because, you know, they're probably looking to outrace you more than anything. And you hit their base in the process, which is really good. Now, you'll notice that between the Silencer, Snowtrooper, Price on Your Head as 9 2-drops, this is my 10th, 11th, 12th 2-drop. Now 12 2-drops is pretty standard, and this is the kind of thing that I was a little trepidatious on the night before, because I was like, I really want to play 3 shoot downs, but I don't know how to fit them in unless I just treat them as a 2-drop. And so it was a little risky. There were 2 games throughout the whole day where this was my only turn 1 play, and my opponent played a ground unit, and I just kind of had to claim. That was really, really awful. But there were also like 3 games where my opponent like turn 1 A-Winged or turn 1 Kylo Silencer, and then I just got to kill it, and super duper dope. At the end of the day though, I would probably just replace this with General Pride. I just didn't really think about it until the like few days after the tournament, but your General Pride is probably insane in this deck because your opponent, even if they win the die roll, is probably going to give you initiative every time because, you know, they don't want to get bountied on turn 1. So if you can just drop Pride, and then you get to claim after they play their 2-drop, and then blast them for 2 to base and 2 indirect on the 3 resource turn, is probably pretty crazy. So I think these should just be prides. But we'll talk about additions to the deck once we get to these last few events, though. Next up is Resupply. So this is probably the biggest change from the previous iteration of this deck, of the previous deck profile. Is in the previous deck profile, I only played Price on Your Head and Laser Technician. I only played 6 ramp. And then it was when I was playing Store Showdowns in like set 3, where I was like, dang, Darth Vader does not need to be in this deck against like the aggro decks, the Sabines, the Jangos, all that jazz. He just doesn't do anything against them. What 3 cards in my sideboard could be better? And then I was like, what if I just sideboard 3 resupplies, and in the aggro matchups, I just play 9 ramp, and I get like turn 3 Bossk every single time. And so as I was playing that sideboard strategy, I really liked it. Then I went, this should just be in the main board because I'm fighting aggro way more than I'm fighting decks that I want Darth Vader unit against. The set 1 Darth Vader unit, I should say. I've been doing that in the main board ever since, and I do like playing the 9 ramp. However, when you're playing like those mid-range matchups, it does kind of start giving you some dead draws as you go into like the 6 resource and above turn. So not sure if this would stay in the deck, but I did like it. I ramped almost every single game I played. And then we're playing 3 copies of Open Fire. We just want to blast Millennium Falcons with this, but also in tandem with a bounty, this can kill any 5 health unit, which is also really good. Again, we're very wary about those techs and DJs, so we needed to kill those guys ASAP, pronto, all day, every day. So Open Fire is really, really good. And the last card in the deck is, of course, just 3 copies of the Almighty O-Roman Barrage. Give your guy 2/2 and then blast his power as damage. This is amazing. This is probably one of the best things that you can do on the 5 resource flip turn. It's just flipping Bossk, blasting their board for 6, and then hitting their face for 6. If you blasted something with a bounty on it and you get to double collect, even better, but you know, Barrage is just insane. And so this was the 50 that I played in the Denver sector. And we'll go over my sideboard real quick before we kind of get into anything else. So we've got 2 copies of Disabling Fangfighter because if we're really worried about like, you know, turn 1 spaceship, turn 2 pilot strats, this is kind of the other place that we can go with that. So this is just a little bit of protection against those guys. Then we have 3 copies of Force Choke. This is, of course, for Sabine and for Han, because you got to kill Tech and DJ like crazy. Not anymore, but you know, we'll get to that. Next up, also for Han, is 3 Champs and Doulas. When they're ramping past you, it's really, really nice to see, because like you have like 9 ramp cards in this deck, so you can literally just sideboard out any 3 ramp you want. Probably the resupplies because it's more vulnerable to Bodhi Rook. And then you can just swap this in for this, because this is basically a ramp card, except it's super duper free when your opponent is out ramping you instead. So super duper good against Han when he just kind of tries to make a play. And then I did put 2 Darth Vader units in the sideboard because I wanted to bring them into the more like fair matchups, which realistically what that means is probably like the Quinlan Voss and maybe just kind of any other mid-range decks I might run into, where, you know, when you're playing like, you know, a more real fair game of Star Wars Unlimited, where it's not just like, you know, who's dying on the 6 resource turn first, that's the kind of games that you want to play Darth Vader in. So that's why he was in the sideboard. So this was the 60 that I played, and so obviously it worked out pretty well. Not a bad overall finish. I think I beat 3 Jangos across the day. This deck ended up doing really, really well into Jango. I wish I'd have played against him more. My 3 losses were against 2 Hans, a Han Green and a Mono Yellow Han. Just kind of getting like, you know, hand ripped into oblivion, turn 1 resupply, going into, you know, unit Han and going crazy, not finding the interaction to like kill Han on sight. Never in any of my Han rounds did I get to like flip Bossk first and then like hold barrage to kill Han on sight. That matchup is just really, really dependent on finding those interaction points, and if you don't find them, it's really bad, and Han just gets crazy. And then even if you do find a non-zero amount of those interaction points, the hand hate will get them out of you, and you have to find them again, and it can just get really out of hand really fast. So Han was 2 of my losses, just a whole lot of hand hate, a whole lot of DJ. I think the Mono Yellow Han round, we played 3 games, and 6 DJs were resolved. There were 2 DJs resolved in every game. And yeah, the 2 games where I could only kill 1 of the DJs are the 2 that I lost. And then my 3rd loss was just to Sabine, just like slapping a Darksaber on Sabine right away, and me just having no Sentinel, no Force Choke, no Fang Fighter, just absolutely no way to break that, and then just kind of getting rolled over by like Po ECL into the leader. You know, just kind of how those things fall apart sometimes. But yes, that was my day. I was pretty happy with the 60 that I played, all things considered. That being said, there are some changes that I do really want to make going into the future. Because, you know, Jango and DJ don't exist anymore. So a lot of the way that this deck is structured doesn't need to be here to hard counter them. And then also, the game as a whole is going to shift because like pilot strategies are probably pretty viable now that Jango's not here to exhaust everything ever. Han still has a lot of exhaust and a lot of bounce, so you need to be a little bit careful, but I think we're going to see some pretty serious shifts. So what you're looking at right now is probably going to change, and I definitely want to bring you guys a more updated post-Jango ban set for ECL Bossk, because holy cow, man, this deck is really fun to play, and I think it's still very sick. Stuff like bringing in Allegiant General Pride. Some of the Red Villainy pilots have some like insane upside. I could definitely see a world where like Darth Vader pilot unit comes in as like a really good ECL 7 on the ground target, or if we could just slap him on a ship and start going crazy. IG-88 doesn't seem like a bad pilot either. Again, it's very easy to have a damaged unit in this deck to turn his +3 power on. Maybe something like Dengar. There's a lot of new strategies that I really want to try with this. And then, you know, I think things like Steadfast might not be as necessary anymore because we don't need to kill Jango on sight. Just side note, holy cow, I ACL'd Steadfast into Jango so many times over the weekend, and every time my opponent was like, oh yeah, that guy exists, huh? Is super duper funny. Another reason why I think pilot strats are pretty attractive to this deck is kind of how what we were doing with Arm to the Teeth back in set 2. Putting a pilot on Punishing 1, getting to swing twice with it, there's some really, really crazy ceilings there. And then, you know, our removal gets freed up a little bit too, as does our ramp, because maybe we're not worried about as much targeted hand destruction, depending on how prevalent Han still is. Quillen's going to be pretty prevalent still, you know, quite possibly the best deck running around, so I don't think you can stop taking away the redundancy of your strategy too much in this new format, but I'm really looking forward to explore things, as well as maybe take another look at 30 HP big ramp green Bossk, because stuff like Devastator and Planetary Bombardment, I mean, sure, Piet's cool and all, but, you know, what if we were a big lizard instead? Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this, you know, deck profile, deck sequel, deck update. Again, if you want something like way more in-depth, check out the original profile. I think watching those 2 videos together, if you really want to, like, you know, get in the head of this deck, is going to give you that, you know, that full, complete, grandiose picture of everything going on. but also don't get 100% thousand million percent attached to what's going on here, because I think we're gonna be able to explore some really cool changes now that another FET has fallen. Thanks so much just for making it to the end of this video. I really appreciate it. If you super enjoyed the video, if you could leave a like down there, I would totally appreciate that. But what I actually would appreciate more than an arbitrary like is if you just have a comment with some thoughts, feedback, criticism, or just endearment of the deck. I'd be much more interested in hearing that instead. But if you want to do both, that's probably what the algorithm would like the most. And if you, of course, want to see more Star Wars Unlimited content, or just whatever I'm up to in my life, hit the subscribe button and get all my stuff pushed to your news feed. But that's all the shilling I've got for this evening, guys. Look forward to some more Jump to Light Speed stuff on the way, because there's a lot of decks I want to try in this set. And I'm finally back in my home base, and oh my god, I think I have like a PQ, 4 showdowns, and a 1K throughout next month to play. So it's about to get crazy, guys. It's about to get so crazy, guys. We're gonna play so much Star Wars Unlimited over the next 2 months. I'm beyond excited. So I'm about to, now that I've finally, put this video together, I get to take this bad boy apart and start exploring some new avenues for ECL Bossk in the Jump to Light Speed post-Jango FET and DJ ban meta. I can't wait, guys. I'll see y'all around in the next one. Until then, take it easy. Thanks for watching.